You won't believe this. A wealthy real estate agent found dead, her body showing no signs of struggle, no trauma, just an eerie, silent poison that left no trace. But that's not the shocking part. What came next will turn everything you think you know upside down. The body of Emily Harper, a successful real estate agent known for her impeccable reputation and hidden past, was discovered in a pristine downtown apartment, the kind of place that echoed wealth and influence. But there was something wrong with this scene. Detective Bennett stood in the doorway of the luxurious penthouse, his sharp eyes scanning the room. The apartment was immaculate, the kind of place one would expect to find pristine furniture and glass shelves of expensive art. But as Bennett took a step into the space, he couldn't shake the unease gnawing at him. Something was off, something he couldn't put his finger on. Emily Harper was dead, and nothing about it made sense. She'd been found lying on the floor, face up, as though she had simply collapsed in place. There were no visible injuries, no blood, no signs of struggle. Her body looked almost peaceful. But there was a lingering smell of something faint but bitter in the air. The coroner's report came back poisoning. The motive was unclear. Emily was well liked, a woman who'd made a name for herself in the world of luxury properties, but her life had more shadows than anyone realized. Those close to her said she'd been acting strangely in the weeks before her death, secretive, even paranoid. She had spoken about a new project. She was investigating something that had her worried. Her phone records showed she'd been meeting with a local businessman, Mark Chandler, a man with connections to some of the city's most powerful figures. The same Mark Chandler, who, if rumors were to be believed, had a history of involvement in shady dealings. As Bennett dug deeper, he uncovered a disturbing connection. Emily was investigating something in Chandler's life, something that had the potential to ruin him. The clues began to fall into place. Emily Harper's life was more complicated than anyone had imagined. She had been in over her head, digging into Chandler's affairs, trying to uncover something dangerous, something that might just be worth killing for. The victim. Emily Harper wasn't just another businesswoman. Beneath her successful exterior, she was involved in something much darker, something people had been whispering about for years. Emily had connections, but not the kind she was willing to admit. Beneath the glossy exterior of luxury real estate, she had begun to unearth the financial secrets of the city's elite. Those secrets had led her to Mark Chandler. The suspects. Mark Chandler was the obvious suspect. A wealthy businessman with a track record of evading the law, Chandler had a reputation for being ruthless. But he wasn't the only one who had something to hide. Emily's own colleagues, her friends, and even members of her family were acting strangely after her death. Bennett's instincts told him that someone close to her might have played a role in her demise. The deeper Bennett went, the murkier things became. Everyone had a motive, but no one had an alibi. No one had an explanation for what had really happened to Emily Harper. As Bennett tried to piece everything together, an anonymous tip arrived, directing him to Chandler's office. It was a lead one that would take him to the heart of the conspiracy. He wasn't sure what he'd find there, but he was willing to take the risk. The investigation was heating up, and he needed answers. Inside Chandler's office, Bennett discovered something that shocked him. An old locked file cabinet, buried beneath stacks of paperwork and legal documents. With a sense of urgency, Bennett forced open the drawer and found a series of old dust-covered folders, the hidden room. Inside, he found something that turned his stomach. Hidden beneath layers of financial records and real estate deals, there was a hidden compartment in the floor. And inside the compartment, a collection of disturbing items, photographs, personal letters, and other documents that tied Chandler to multiple disappearances. The more Bennett looked, the more pieces fell into place. Emily had been on the trail of something much larger than a simple poisoning, something that spanned years and involved people in positions of unimaginable power. The file on Chandler's desk wasn't just about money, it was about people. And Emily Harper had stumbled onto something she shouldn't have. The shocking discovery. Bennett's heart raced as he flipped through the folders one by one. His hands trembled as he held a photograph of a man someone he recognized. The face staring back at him wasn't just a victim, it was someone he had trusted, someone who had worked closely with him in the past. Detective Raymond Burke, his old partner. Burke had been involved in a similar case years ago, a case that had never been solved. But now, it all started to make sense. Emily Harper wasn't just another casualty of the real estate world. She had uncovered a conspiracy that stretched far beyond Chandler's wealth and corruption. She had unearthed a string of disappearances connected to Chandler, and those he controlled a secret network of powerful people, willing to do anything to protect their interests. And now, Bennett realized that the most terrifying part wasn't who was behind the murder, but who might be standing right beside him. But Bennett didn't have time to process everything. As he stared at the photograph of his former partner, a chilling thought crossed his mind. Detective Raymond Burke wasn't just involved in this case. He was at the heart of it. And just as Bennett was about to pick up the phone to confront Burke, the door to Chandler's office swung open, and a cold voice filled the room. Cliffhanger. You shouldn't have opened that door, Bennett. They say the truth is buried under layers of lies. But what happens when the lies are coming from the people you trust the most? Detective Bennett stood frozen in Chandler's office, the file in his hands trembling ever so slightly. His pulse quickened, but before he could process what he'd just discovered, the sound of the door creaking shut echoed through the room. He whipped around, his eyes locking onto the figure that had entered. It was Detective Raymond Burke, his old partner, someone Bennett had trusted implicitly for years. But the man standing before him now wasn't the Burke Bennett remembered. There was a coldness in his eyes, an edge to his movements that felt wrong. Burke's gaze flicked to the folder in Bennett's hands. I see you've been doing some digging, Bennett. His voice was calm, measured, but the underlying menace was unmistakable. Bennett's mind raced. He couldn't afford to jump to conclusions, not yet. But the evidence was mounting. Emily Harper had uncovered something big. And now, it seemed as if everything was pointing toward Burke. Why were you involved in this case, Burke? Bennett asked, trying to keep his voice steady. What's really going on here? Burke smiled, but it wasn't the friendly grin Bennett had come to know. It was more of a smirk, like a man who'd already won. You've always been too slow to connect the dots, Bennett. That's your problem. You should have figured it out sooner. Bennett clenched his fists. What are you talking about? What's going on here, Burke? Burke stepped forward, his tone turning darker. You think you're uncovering something big? That Emily was just a casualty of a wealthy man's dirty dealings? You're wrong. This goes deeper than you could ever imagine. Emily Harper wasn't the first, and she won't be the last. Bennett's heart skipped a beat. He had a sinking feeling in his gut, one that told him, it's him. The truth was about to hit him hard. But before he could respond, Burke continued. You don't understand, Bennett. You never did. All of this, the murders, the disappearances, it's part of a bigger plan, and you're too late to stop it. Bennett felt the ground shift beneath him. The weight of Burke's words crushed him, and for the first time, he doubted everything he thought he knew. The man behind the curtain. As Bennett tried to process the revelation, Burke remained eerily calm, as if he were merely stating the obvious. But there was something dangerous in the air, a palpable tension that Bennett could feel in his bones. You've been investigating Chandler, Burke continued almost lazily. But it's not Chandler you need to worry about. It never was. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Chandler is just a puppet, a pawn in a much bigger game. Bennett's thoughts were racing. Was this the truth? Could Burke be right? He had trusted Burke for so long, But now everything was in question. How much of their partnership had been a lie? Burke's eyes narrowed, as if reading Bennett's thoughts. You've always been so righteous, Bennett. Always following the rules. But that's what makes you weak. You can't see the bigger picture. For the first time in their partnership, Bennett realized that Burke was not the man he thought he knew. The man standing in front of him was someone entirely different. Someone who was ready to destroy everything Bennett had worked for. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, more suffocating. Bennett's mind screamed for him to leave, to get away from Burke before it was too late. But he knew that wasn't an option. Burke had just admitted to knowing more than anyone else he was at the heart of it all. And now, he was the only person who could answer the most pressing question. What was the bigger game? The missing link, Bennett was stuck. He couldn't just walk away from the office without answers. He needed to know why Burke was involved. He needed to understand the true connection between Emily Harper's death, Mark Chandler, and all the other mysterious disappearances. Tell me what I'm missing, Burke, Bennett demanded, stepping closer. What's the connection? Burke's lips twisted into a knowing smile. You're looking for a link, Bennett. But you won't find it by searching for more bodies or more evidence. The connection is simpler than you think. Bennett felt a cold rush of realization. You're saying it's been in front of me the whole time. Burke's smile deepened. You've been so focused on the wrong thing. Chandler's deals, his business, it's all a distraction. The real conspiracy isn't about money. It's about control. Suddenly, the pieces clicked together. Emily Harper wasn't just investigating Chandler's shady dealings. She was looking into something far more dangerous. A web of powerful people, pulling strings behind the scenes, controlling not just the city, but possibly much more. Emily had been digging into a network, a secret society of sorts, using Chandler as a front for their operations. But who were these people? And what did they want? A deadly game. Before Bennett could ask another question, Burke's demeanor shifted. His calm facade cracked, revealing something darker. You don't get it, do you? Emily was a threat. You're a threat. You've both uncovered too much. And now, you're both expendable. Bennett's blood ran cold. Burke wasn't just playing a role, he was fully invested in the conspiracy. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. Burke wasn't just involved in the case, he was part of the conspiracy. Bennett took a step back, his mind racing. If Burke was involved, then everything was compromised: his investigation, his trust in his team, and his safety. He was now a target, just like Emily. Burke stepped closer, lowering his voice. You can't stop it now, Bennett. You've already played into their hands. The escape. As Burke moved toward the door, Bennett felt the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. If he didn't act now, he would be swallowed up by this conspiracy, just like everyone else. Bennett's eyes scanned the office for an escape. He needed to get out, to regroup, and figure out his next move. But Burke wasn't done. I'll be keeping an eye on you, Bennett, Burke warned, his voice low and dangerous. You won't get far. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving Bennett alone in the room, the weight of the discovery heavy on his chest. Cliffhanger. He was right. The conspiracy ran deeper than he ever imagined. And now, Bennett was on the inside, one step away from being the next casualty. Bennett's grip on his phone tightened. You're involved in all of this. You killed Emily, didn't you? You were behind her death. Burke chuckled darkly. No, Bennett, I didn't kill her, but I did give her the chance to uncover something she shouldn't have. And now, I'm giving you the same chance. But you're too late. You're too far down the rabbit hole to stop it. Before Bennett could respond, the line went dead. The final betrayal. The truth had been laid bare, and yet, it still didn't make sense. How had Bennett been so blind to the conspiracy surrounding him? How had Burke manipulated him so easily? But just as Bennett turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind him. He spun around, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Standing there in the doorway was Mark Chandler himself. Chandler's eyes gleamed with an almost sadistic delight as he walked into the office. "You're too late, detective. You've uncovered everything you were supposed to uncover. But that's where it ends. You were never meant to figure this out." Bennett's breath quickened. "You're the one behind all of this, Chandler. You've been pulling the strings all along." Chandler laughed, his voice echoing in the empty room. "I've been in control since day one, Bennett. But you were always the wild card. You never saw it coming. You thought you were the one investigating me, but you were really investigating yourself." Bennett felt his pulse race as the walls seemed to close in around him. Chandler's words were starting to make sense. Burke had been playing both sides all along. The conspiracy had been right in front of him, hiding in plain sight. "You've played your part," Chandler continued, his eyes narrowing. "Now, you're expendable. It's time for you to disappear, just like Emily." As Chandler stepped toward him, Bennett instinctively reached for his weapon. But before he could draw the truth is always stranger than fiction. But the truth can also be the most dangerous thing you'll ever uncover. Bennett didn't know how much time had passed since Burke left the office, but every minute felt like an eternity. The weight of the discovery gnawed at him. Burke, the man who had been his partner, his friend, was no longer the person he thought he knew. He was now a part of something far darker, a conspiracy that reached beyond anything Bennett had ever imagined. The photograph of Burke, buried in the files he found earlier, kept haunting him. It was no longer just a clue, it was a warning. Everything had been connected, but Burke had been playing both sides the whole time. The deeper Bennett went, the more dangerous things became. Now, there was no turning back. Bennett needed answers. But more than that, he needed to get to Emily Harper's final days to piece together everything she had uncovered before her life was so cruelly taken. He couldn't trust anyone now, not even the people closest to him. He had to go to the source, to Chandler's office, and finish what Emily had started. The final piece of the puzzle. When Bennett arrived at Chandler's office, he was greeted by an unnerving silence. Everything about the place seemed still, too still, as if it were waiting for him to walk in. The security guard who usually manned the desk wasn't there. No one was in the hallways. Bennett's gut told him something was wrong. The feeling only intensified when he noticed the door to Chandler's personal office was ajar. Stepping inside, Bennett's eyes scanned the room. The atmosphere was heavy with tension. This wasn't just a business office. It was a trap. He knew it. But he couldn't stop now. He had to find that final link, the one thing that would tie everything together. As he stepped into the office, his attention immediately landed on something different.